Good afternoon. So today I'm going to be talking about a few of the physiological changes that happen both with sitting still as well as with moderate exercise. So starting with sitting quietly, we're going to look through what happens to the respiratory system, the cardiovascular system, and the neuromuscular system. Now, initially, once I sat still, we were sitting still for about 5 minutes. My initial reaction was to start fidgeting, start moving my legs, tapping my feet, moving my fingers. All of that is because I'm not really too used to sitting still. Pretty comfortable with moving around. I always like to keep my hands and feet busy doing something. But after about 30 or 40 seconds, I was able to calm myself down, start to get into a peaceful mindset, and relax for the remainder of the time. Throughout those 5 minutes, I noticed a few things that happened. Specifically, my heart rate started to decrease from a resting heart rate of about 60 down to 57. Part of the reason for that is there was a lesser need for oxygen blood flow throughout my body. My muscles weren't working very much, so there wasn't as much carbon dioxide buildup, nor was there a need for as much ATP production. Additionally, my respiratory rate also decreased, dropped down breaths per minute. Most of this just because as I was sitting still, I didn't need to get more oxygen into my lungs to be able to push throughout my body. It was a not labored breathing. And looking at my neuromuscular activity, there was very little neuromuscular activity once I stopped fidgeting. My muscles remained calm. There was no tensing, no spasms, other than just a very slow diaphragmatic contraction that allowed me to continue breathing. After sitting quietly for 5 minutes, we started to jog in place for 3 minutes and then do push-ups for 3 minutes, and that is where I really started to see some changes. Now, I am a runner. I am an athlete myself, so I do work out regularly. However, both of these exercises still had changes on me. Looking at the acute changes to my cardiovascular system, both jogging and push-ups increased my heart rate because there was a higher demand for blood flow to get oxygen throughout my body, to get oxygen to my muscles. Also, an increased demand to remove the carbon dioxide as waste product that was building up, and the lactic acid as well. Additionally, my heart rate increased as a result of this to pump more blood throughout, which increased my cardiac output as well. So my heart rate went up to about 135 while jogging, and it went up to about 93 while doing the push-ups. Looking at the neuromuscular changes, I noticed that there was just a little bit of a change while jogging, mostly in my lower body, quads, calves, hamstrings, glutes, as well as a little bit in my core. There was increased firing of the increased muscle fibers starting to fire off. That allowed them to have the contractions to be able to take the steps, to keep my core strong, to keep my pelvis aligned. As well as during the push-ups, there was a increase in not only in muscle fibers and recruitment and firing in my arms and chest, but there was also a bit more fatigue. I made it about 90 seconds doing push-ups before I had to pause and take a rest, and then I resumed for the remainder about 1 minute. So looking at that, much more adapt to running, as that is my primary sport, than I was at the push-ups. However, I was able to complete both. Looking at my respiratory rate, I was able to see that it increased more for the jogging than it did during the push-ups overall. However, while I was jogging, it stayed pretty steady, whereas around 40 breaths per minute when I was doing the push-ups, it went up high to about 46, and then it dropped down to about 35 once I resumed. And that's because with each eccentric contraction, I was inhaling, and with each concentric contraction on my push-ups, that's when I was exhaling. So as I was able to do more at the beginning, I was breathing more. And as my push-ups slowed down, so did my breathing. Now looking at some long-term effects of what could happen to all three systems over long-term exercise, we're starting to see that My heart rate will, in fact, actually begin to decrease. My resting heart rate will decrease with prolonged exercise. My cardiac output will also decrease. And then looking at my neuromuscular adaptations, I'm going to actually start to see some hypertrophy, which is the increase in muscle mass, as well as increase in muscle fibers and the muscle fiber recruitment that allows for the contractions to take place. So that will enable me to prolong my activity, prolong my exercise before I reach fatigue. Looking at my respiratory rate, I will also start to see a better breathing pattern. So in the sense of I'll be able to inhale more oxygen with each breath, which will allow me to have a lower respiratory rate as I get stronger. In addition, I will also start to see a larger chest cavity for my respiratory rate. So that way with each breath, I'm actually able to inhale more oxygen in as well as exhale more oxygen out. All in all, the long-term effects of exercise extend much beyond this. However, those are just a few main points. Notably speaking, my cardiovascular system will become more adequate at pumping blood throughout the body. It will have a higher cardiac output so that I can get more blood to my body with less required beats. My respiratory system, I'll be able to intake more oxygen, exhale more oxygen over the course of fewer breaths per minute. And my neuromuscular system, I'll start to see some hypertrophy, increase in muscle fiber recruitment, which will allow me to be stronger, faster, as well as resist fatigue much easier.